Let's go. What's going on, everybody? I'm No Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And we're learning every day here. Sometimes that is some right-wing propaganda. Sometimes that is a source that our moderator shares with us. Sometimes that's what hiccups not to have in the development of a stream, of a new channel. And I think we're growing past that. At least that's the goal. We got to move on from the days of just editing stuff live. I think that's behind us now. It was easier when we had very little activity, very little to engage with. What's up, Kind of Clueless? It was easier then, and we still have some days like that. But they're becoming less, and I don't want to feel like we aren't making the kind of progress that we want to be making with projects like video editing, because I'm too busy getting distracted from them by the debate or other chat engagement content. So it's time to just move that stuff offline and to stick with engagement while I'm doing a stream. So that's what we're doing now, and we're video editing live. Kind of Clueless, I've been all right. Yeah, you're gonna have to forgive me. It's like with the number of people that I'm engaging with lately, I don't remember what we've talked about. I remember your name. How have you been? I'm just over here struggling because I've got like still a couple more videos that I want to make out of content that I've made, and the past week has just been really like a big mess with me wanting to turn those things into videos, but then like getting swept up in other stuff that I've been doing with chat, and so like I don't feel that bad about it, because like a steady release of videos isn't so bad compared to like releasing 3 in a couple of days. Yeah, vacation's over. That's where I'm at. I'm trying to adjust back to things being normal. Did release the 3-hour gender debate, and that's gotten almost 300 views already. So, and this time a whole bunch of those aren't me, so that's nice. Got 50 subscribers on YouTube, got 50 subscribers on Twitch. Things are going all right. Things are going all right. Except, the real world. The real world really sucks right now. Absolute terror. The American project is in danger of just being over. Not sure how I'm supposed to feel about that. I mean, I guess I do know how I'm supposed to feel about it, but it's kind of weird to be in the middle of it, you know? This isn't what I expected when I was a kid. I guess that's something that you could always foresee, is like, or you could have always foreseen, is things aren't always going to just improve. But that's really what it felt like when I was a kid, is like the world is just getting better. We've been on a track since the Stone Age to just get better, but then all the things that I didn't know about, like swings, and we're definitely in a swing right now. And then Maddie shared a article with me earlier today, the Global Capitalist Crisis, by William I. Robinson from the Science and Society Journal. And it's depressing. It's depressing. It was from 2018, so, or 2019, so they don't even fucking know back then. But this is just talking about how the transnationalism of capitalism and corporations is what's creating the pressure that we're under today. And I hadn't really thought about it that way. So that's yuck. I guess we can go over and do some ground news, cover some articles, cover some news, see what's going on. I mean, plainly Venezuela already happened and is still happening. Oh, I remember I wanted to go over the charging document for Maduro. I need to close this. Got too much stuff open. Close that. Oh boy. I've got so much that I need to still do. I think I'm gonna have to make myself a list. Okay, back to ground news. Let's see what's going on over here. Okay. U.S. overhauls childhood vaccine schedule, recommends fewer shots. Oh, God. Reducing routine coverage from 17 to 11 diseases. HHS's assessment of about 20 peer nations found the United States out of step after President Donald Trump ordered a December review. Tracy Beth Hogue and Martin Koldorf examining vaccine protocols. HHS reclassified specific shots, moving rotavirus, influenza, meningococcal disease, and hepatitis A to shared decision-making, while the CDC now recommends a single dose of the human papillomavirus vaccine. Officials said federal insurance programs, including Medicaid, will continue coverage. States and pediatricians said the sudden switch creates conflicting guidance and new burdens, with physician groups and public health experts warning the abrupt change could lead to preventable hospitalizations and deaths. The move skipped the usual advisory committee on immunization practices review, raising procedural and legal questions, while observers called it a seismic shift by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Yeah, we don't care about process anymore. Everything's a joke. Everything's a joke. No one cares. Federal aviation search ends for mountain lions after solo hiker fatally attacked on Colorado Trail. Search ends for mountain lions. What? Why were authorities killed 2 mountain lions near the site of the attack, but a 3rd lion could not be located after 4 days of searching? What? So they went hunting for mountain lions because mountain lions killed somebody? Federal Aviation Notice warned of slackline before deadly helicopter crash in Arizona. Tuberville files paperwork to enter Alabama governor's race. Rare whale is having an encouraging season for births. House Ethics Panel extends investigation into Collins' top aide. Mercedes to offer autonomous driving tech for U.S. city streets. Large part of Maduro's security team killed during U.S. raid. Walz not running for Minnesota governor. All right, here we go. Here's Maduro. Verizian Star, what's going on? That's a Pokemon. I know that. MAGA has given up on the American project. Why do you say this? Well, Terry, let me ask you, are you MAGA? Tapped in? Oh, yeah. Pokemon? Sure. Terry, if you're MAGA, I would like to... Not even an American? Well, the thing is, the American project is rooted in some core values. Those core values being republicanism, pluralism, egalitarianism, rule of constitutional law, and MAGA just doesn't really care about the legal process anymore. I had a whole conversation with a MAGA coworker today, walking her through the Venezuela debacle, and she just does not care that Trump did not follow the legal process. What law have they broken? That the chief executive, the executive branch, cannot commit acts of war without the consent of Congress. This is the single most terrifying thing that can be done, maybe the second most, before things start going really bad here at home. If it goes any further, it's just going to be real bad here at home. There are many reasons why the invasion is bad. Did what? Sure, I can hope something good comes out of every bad move, but even if it does, that doesn't change the fact that there was a bad move. The way I put it to my coworker today, I was like, imagine you're in the Dawn of the Dead remake. We're all living in a mall together, and there are zombies outside. Among all of us, we have one gun. We have limited resources and a persistent threat. None of us are very comfortable with each other. This is a terrifying situation to only have one gun. But we come up with a system that we think we can use, and that is we're going to vote for who can use the gun. Now, they can't decide what to do with that gun. They get to pull the trigger, they get to wield it. But that same person can't decide what is done with the gun, otherwise that person has too much terrifying power. So we're going to make a board, 5 of us. The 5 of us are going to decide how that person is going to use our one zombie survival gun. Now, we're going to make one exception. If a zombie comes inside, you can kill the zombie with the gun. We have cleared that with you. That's fine. But then this person agrees. They're like, this is the rule. I agree this is the rule. And then we run into a situation where a human shows up outside the mall, and we all go to look at the person, and the guy with the gun just shoots him dead. And we all have to stand there and go, the person who's holding the gun said that they agreed to the process for how to use the gun, and now they don't seem to care about it at all. They can stand there and say, this was justified, but I'm not going to tell the person with the gun that it's not justified. What else is the person with the gun going to feel is justified to do with the gun? They entered a country to make an arrest. Yes. I don't think it's this complex. Maduro was arrested and the USA have left the country. That I'm not concerned. I am concerned about what happened in Venezuela. But I'm concerned with how what happened in Venezuela happened in Venezuela. I literally have an article open right now that says, oh no, this is not the same article, that the majority of Maduro's security team was killed. Even with congressional approval, it would be terrifying, yes, but it would follow our law. The person who holds the gun would be following our law. Executive power The limitation of executive power is a core American concept. It's what we were built on. Before anything else, there was the Declaration of Independence, and the Declaration of Independence was entirely a statement of grievances against an overzealous executive. All kills were from initial shots at US soldiers. They were invading, dude. Cities were not bombed. I mean, military sites were bombed. It was literally an act of war. It was literally an act of war. We entered a state without the consent of the state. We used military force. We abducted the leader of a country. But besides all that, the fact that that's what it was meant that our system requires the president to go through certain procedures before he is allowed to use military force. Every single person who followed orders in that mission should serve some kind of life sentence. They were illegal orders, unjustifiable orders. No one had the authority to do what they did. Pterodactyl, that doesn't make any sense at all. How were Americans shot at if they weren't already invading? The Constitution, pterodactyl. They broke the Constitution. The Constitution. Am I happy that Maduro is out? I'm not personally informed enough on the Venezuela situation to say whether or not I'm happy Maduro is out. I have some understandings that there was an election that the people wanted Maduro out, and in that sense, if that's true, I am happy Maduro is out, but I don't think even a lot of Venezuelans would be happy about how he was removed. Sure, I'll pull up the provision of the Constitution. Where is it? Thought it was in section 8. There it is. It is in section 8. Congress shall have the power to declare war. And otherwise, Article 2. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Come on. Ah. There it is. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. To declare war, one must make a law. The president cannot make law. The president must faithfully execute law. That's it. He declared war when he committed an act of war. I agree that USA is not at war with Venezuela, but they were. Pterodactyl, hey bud. Hey bud. I'm an attorney. I went to law school. I studied constitutional law. I'm just gonna need you to understand, this isn't a question. An act of war was committed. Okay, I looked this up earlier today too. Let's look up the definition of an act of war. USC 2331. An act of war. The term act of war means any act occurring in the course of A, a declared war. That is one option, pterodactyl. That is one option. B, armed conflict, whether or not war has been declared between two or more nations. That appears to be within the bounds of what occurred in Venezuela. Or C, armed conflict between military forces of any origin. That would also qualify. This was an act of war, plain and simple. It's not complicated. Like you said, it's not complicated. Under US law, this was an act of war. I don't know that the bombing of the boats would count as an act of war. I think it was just murder. I mean, I don't think. It literally was murder. Then, pterodactyl, a state doesn't have to have an elected leader for it to be a state. Surprise. Surprise. A nation that has a king is still a state. Pterodactyl, you are trying to make things ambiguous that are not, and this is why I'm saying that MAGA has abandoned the American project. People like you just want to make things ambiguous. They want to make it so that words have no meaning. You said a democratically elected leader. You said an elected leader. I didn't say that either, pterodactyl. Are you that dense? Kind of clueless. If you hit a military vessel, then it's an act of war. Maddie, welcome in. We're talking with somebody who's trying to tell us that Venezuela was not an act of war and it's going very poorly for them. What law did they break? The Constitution. Can you send me this section? Yes, I can. It wasn't an act of war, though. Well, let me look up the definition of act of war under 18 U.S.C. 2331. The country had a leader, though. The country had someone that was the head of state. Oh boy, now we're talking about a part of the Constitution that I literally just read and have never known the meaning of. Congress shall have the power to grant letters of marque and reprisal. I haven't... Maddie, you know I started reading books last year. What is happening? Republican Congressman Tim Burchett recently introduced the Cartel Mark and Reprisal Authorization Act 2025 legislation that would allow U.S. President Donald Trump to authorize private citizens to attack foreign ships. To put the issue in context, the bill, if approved, will allow anyone to act as legally approved privateers or pirates. Oh, God. Oh, God. And pterodactyl, you know what's fun? If you're still here, is even if he's fighting a gang, if the gang is militarized, it would still fit the definition from 18 U.S.C. 2331 because of Section C. Section C is a armed conflict between militaries of any kind. Hello, Genghis Khan. No, Maddie, I didn't think you were making it up. I just didn't know what it meant. I'm not familiar with letters of marque. Why is MAGA okay with this? We have seriously gotten to a point of just mental abandonment. They have just abandoned thinking at all. Yeah, you missed the part where I was talking to my MAGA coworker today, and I reached a point where I was like, I don't know if I can do these conversations anymore. You will literally justify anything he does. It doesn't matter. Because all around the world, everyone is cheering. Almost every UN leader is praising it. I doubt that. I extremely doubt that. Pterodactyl, I don't have to try to find an issue. He violated the Constitution, like he does constantly, and they don't care. MAGA doesn't care about the Constitution anymore. If they think the Constitution will get in the way, they will disregard it. Vermeer, what party I support is the party that will move the Overton window to the left. If it makes you feel better, I'm right-leaning, and I think this was a bad move. It's really not a question. Again, there's no debate here. Unless you support authoritarianism. If you support authoritarianism, you can go, well, I think authoritarianism is better than democracy or republicanism. But that's the argument you're having. Let's be clear about it. No one said I want Maduro to keep ruling, Pterodactyl. That's dishonest. Are you a dishonest person, Pterodactyl? It seems like you're a dishonest person. Sure has gone that way so far in this conversation. Keep moving the goalposts. People are supporting letters of marque. Yar har har to delete. Iraqis celebrated, Chileans celebrated. Sure, bro. How can you be so insensitive to one? You do realize that legalized privateering allows for other countries to privateer against U.S. ships. Which party is moving country left? The Democratic Party moves the Overton window left. That's partly why the British force it stop. And when they stopped that, the outlaw pirates started up. Pterodactyl, do you have anything honest left to say? Okay. Do I have? Oh, here it is. Oh, ooh. It's alright, I got the link. Overview of congressional war powers. When the Constitution's framers gathered in Philadelphia to draft the Constitution, one of their principal objectives was to improve the United States' ability to ensure its peace and security through military protection. In line with that aim, the preamble makes securing the common defense one of the Constitution's principal purposes. And the articles that follow allocate broad control over national security to the federal government while denying most war powers to the states. Although courts and commentators occasionally discuss the war power as if it were a unified authority, the Supreme Court has explained that the Constitution spells out the war powers not in a single simple phrase, but in many broad interrelated provisions. In Article 1, the Constitution empowers Congress to provide for the common defense through a set of enumerated authorities concerning war and national security. Yep. Central among these powers is Clause 11 of Article 1, Section 8, which authorizes Congress to declare war. Yep. Clause 11 also empowers Congress to issue letters of marque and reprisal, which are instruments that permits private citizens to capture or destroy enemy property, and permits Congress to authorize rules concerning captures of enemy property on land or at sea. Apart from Clause 11, other clauses in Article 1, Section 8 grant Congress the power to define and punish offenses against the law of nations, raise and support armies, establish and maintain a navy, make rules for armed forces, provide for calling forth the militia, and provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing the militia when in the service of the United States. General congressional authorities, such as the power over appropriations and the necessary and proper clause, supplement Congress's enumerated war powers. Finally, the Supreme Court has sometimes stated that the United States possesses inherent war powers that derive from its role as a sovereign country rather than from an affirmative grant in the Constitution. Other times, however, the Court has expressed the view that the federal government's war powers, while expansive, are only those which are to be derived from the Constitution. Okay, what's the point here? Dems funded genocide in Palestine. That's moving left. Well, Vermeer, if you look at a single issue, it's really dumb, Vermeer, if you're concerned with like which party is moving the Overton window left or right, when you only have two choices and both are doing the same thing with Palestine. Then you say, well, is this one moving the Overton window left? Well, on that issue, neither one is, right? So I guess we've got to move beyond that issue, don't we? We can care about that issue. We can still move the Overton window left. And if you think it's a leftist policy to stop Israel from interfering in Palestine, well then goddamn, you better move the Overton window left so you can get to a further left policy. It's almost like this isn't hard. The British basically cut bait with their entire privateer force and outlawed everyone with it. So those guys moved to places like Barbados. I think our two parties right now are extreme on both sides. Kind of clueless. That's ridiculous. Honestly, it's ridiculous. The left is in no way extreme. At least the political left, the like actual politicians, are not extreme. Vermeer. You can move it left or you can move it right. Those are your options. I'm sorry. Those are literally your options. So what would you rather do? American imperialism has done this many times to my own country as well. Destroying a country just to kill its dictator has never worked. America never has defended democracy internationally. They've literally replaced democratically elected presidents with dictators. So tell me, go ahead. What's your suggestion, Vermeer? Go on. Don't be scared. No, go on. I said don't be scared. Don't be scared. Come on. Give me your recommendation. Oh, great. So when they get to keep dictating everything on their own terms and your hands will remain clean forever. Yay. My virtues are signaled so hard. Everybody look at how big my virtues are. Did Pterodactyl just bail after dropping the Constitution? What was this? Why did I read this? This whole thing just argues against what he said. What is happening? What's happening? Oh my god. Good god. Embarrassing. Also, what's his deal? What is Terry's deal? It's like, I'm not even American, but how is MAGA ending the American project? Verizian, in what direction is a working class party? Which way would we go to get there? Kind of clueless. It sounds like you want to move things left. What? Oh, you're telling Vermeer. Got it. My bad. Yep. You only get further left by going left at all. Oh, their Constitution link got caught up in night mod. Yeah. I pulled it up though. I'm still waiting for Vermeer's recommendation for what we do. Okay, Maddie, I was hoping you would get on tonight because I wanted to get your thoughts about how we proceed from here as to what long form video I should be working on. Because we were working on the TDS video, but with Venezuela happening, I feel like that is not the right move. I think the right move right now is to do our best to educate the public again on... Well, I know I can decide on myself. I was just wondering what input you had, what your thoughts were. I can decide for myself. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm a man, I'm 40. But the alternative I'm thinking is we try to make content that would explain why we don't want authoritarianism to MAGA, and that's going to be difficult. And of course we can't put it, I don't think we can use that language. If that's going to be what I do, I have to say something else. Which makes it hard, because to get any kind of historical reference on it, I would have to use that language. Maddie? Maddie? Is this a mutiny? Maddie is conducting a mutiny. I trust everyone in chat to stand with me against the first mate. Just knock off left and right and just do like Star Wars, add the rebels and the Empire to see it's resolved. I, for one, love my Republican Koch brothers' anti-labor strong arming and decades of funding organizations and lobbies to undermine my community and labor rights, and that's why I vote for ALEC-approved politicians. Yeah, you only say that now because you don't have the crew's support for your mutiny. Make her walk the plank, guys. You lost it. You lost what? What did you lose? Oh, okay. MAGA has given up on the American project. Okay. Okay, I was looking at Maduro pleads not guilty. I wanted to look at this charging document. So Maddie, any thoughts on that before I make a decision? Change. Oh, you want me to change it back? Okay. So it's between doing the TDS video that we've been working on, where we go back in the history of the decades of wrongs of the Trump family, and the options between that and focusing now on trying to explain why authoritarianism bad to MAGA. Venezuela is apropos. So like why authoritarianism bad? That seems more pertinent right now to me. Wasn't it drugs and it? Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. it's freaking scary. Oh, by the way, I did have a coworker change my mind, at least momentarily. I'm still on the precipice. Had a coworker change my mind on the issue of Chevron earlier today. I was like, okay, yeah, if Chevron disappearing is such a problem, then it means that Chevron is a problem. Yeah, in his own home. At least I assume that's where it was. Like, that was so weird to me. Like, I got into a whole conversation with my coworker where I was like, so like, if you can have an offense boosted, or you just have a gun charge tacked on to a crime, if you have an inchoate crime like solicitation, and you bear the same responsibility as the actual committing party in an inchoate crime, then can you be charged with being in possession of a firearm while soliciting a murder? What difference does it make if you have a gun in that situation? Damn, Nightbot. Let me check it out real quick. No, not gonna do back of house. I'm gonna write it down. No back of house work. I'll just have a separate note page. I need to put Twitch chat up on screen. I need to tone Nightbot down. Need to release videos. Maddie, the gender debate has almost 300 views now. Killing it. Yeah. Which is really interesting that it's got like 6 likes. Van Pumpkin on YouTube chat. W. Hi. Just posting a single letter. What are we at? That's not what I... No, this is what I want. Name? Nope. That's not what I want. There we go. 60% positive. 25 comments. Oh, where'd those other 10 come from? There's like one person who did like multiple comments. That was kind of weird. Anyway, not looking at this anymore. On January 5th, 2026, deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores pleaded not guilty at a Manhattan federal courthouse after U.S. Special Forces captured and transported them to New York. The updated indictment, unsealed Saturday, alleges Nicolas Maduro, deposed Venezuelan president, and co-defendants ran a multi-decade narcotics enterprise sending cocaine to the U.S. and corrupted institutions. Maduro was led into the Manhattan courtroom at 12:01 p.m., shackled and wearing a blue prison uniform, while U.S. District Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein read charges including a narco-terrorism conspiracy and signaled further hearings. No cameras were permitted inside. The operation prompted an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting at 1500 UTC. Is this United Nations who are celebrating? According to our friend earlier? Terry? while Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as interim president as Maduro's allies retained control of Venezuelan state institutions. Further hearings are scheduled, beginning a months-long legal fight as Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein leads proceedings, and Nicolas Maduro faces potential life in prison and Venezuela's roughly 303 billion barrels of oil reserves and rising U.S. crude markets. I'm still president and I'm innocent. Prisoner of war. There's a nasty rumor going around that Stephen Miller will be tapped to run Venezuela and it'll become basically black site concentration camp country. No, yes. No. That oil is super thick and our oil foundation is not equipped to process it yet. This is an insane, insane time. I mean, plenty of people are celebrating this, to be fair. Well, but here's the thing. To be clear, like, Donald Trump could bring Putin down. And if he did it without the authority given to him by the Constitution, it would still be bad. It would be good that Putin's gone. Two things can be true at the same time. You know, like Charlie Kirk. Two things can be true at the same time. Okay. For over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public leaders of... Okay. So this isn't just an indictment of Maduro. This is an indictment of Venezuela's regimes for decades. If Maduro is corrupt, it's a good thing for him to be removed, but it's still a bad way to do it. Yeah. Good for Venezuela, bad for America, and I thought this was America first. Nicolas Maduro, aka the Prince? Oh, no, that's Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra. Okay. Well, yeah, there's good and bad qualities to it. If he legitimately was a corrupt leader. Didn't Trump just sign some paper about us not policing the world, too? I don't fucking know, man. Yeah, they're creating a oh my god, Vermeer's back. Hey, are you gonna answer that question? Yeah. It is going to be bad for Venezuela, and it already has been. No one asked for their, when I say no one, I mean the people didn't ask for their country to be invaded. Vermeer, I'm still waiting for that recommendation of what you should vote for, or what you should do in the face in lieu of voting for Democrats. Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, is at the forefront of that corruption and has partnered with his co-conspirators to use his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. Okay, it's already weird to say that his authority is illegally gained, because that's not a question of American law. It's weird. I don't know how to frame that. Since his early days in Venezuelan government, Maduro Moros has tarnished every public office he has held. I hate writing like this. I hate it. As a member, like, this is why... I'll be real. I got an A in analytical writing in law school. I got a B in persuasive writing, because persuasive writing doesn't make sense to me. My personal brand of neurodivergence. I'm just sitting here going, I just want to give you the facts. The facts should convince you. They can. Yeah, my professor didn't persuade me well enough about things I should adopt to write correctly. And hey, I just want to say, I just came down hard on myself and admitted a B I got in law school. But I will have you know I graduated top 10%. Okay? And I almost never studied past 5:30 p.m. Surely America will save the third world country they just invaded this time. Right, it's never about exploitation. Oh, thank you. If I'm gonna admit I got a B, I gotta balance it out. And I also will say, when I was brought in at the University of Texas, it was a top 14 law school. It may not be anymore. It's been so long since I've watched Thank You for Smoking. I don't remember anything about it, except that Aaron Eckhart was in it. Oh, so I need to take lessons from Aaron Eckhart from Thank You for Smoking. I know we want their oil, but I'm curious how much this affects China, because I know we're gunning for them too. It's all bad, man. It's all bad. Trump re-raised the idea of invading Mexico. We should watch that. We should watch that. As a member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Maduro Moros moved loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. As Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro Moros provided Venezuelan diplomatic passports to drug traffickers and facilitated diplomatic cover for planes used by money launderers to repatriate drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela. As Venezuela's president and now de facto ruler, Maduro Moros allows cocaine fuel. Well, hey, look at that. Amazing. How all I had to do was look at the federal government's argument in their case against Maduro to argue against any of these numbskulls like my coworker and Terry, who are saying they don't have a leader, so it's not a military action, or it's not an act of war because they don't have a leader. Well, hey, look at that. As Venezuelan's president and now de facto ruler, oh, well, look at that. It looks like he's ruling the state of Venezuela. Incredible. How does that work? Taking this oil supply might be a strong arm against China. As Venezuela's president and now de facto ruler, Maduro Moros allows cocaine-fueled corruption allows. That's a weird verb tense to use there. Is he doing it from prison? Cocaine-fueled corruption to flourish for his own benefit, for the benefit of members of his ruling regime, and for the benefit of his family members. The defendant now sits atop a corrupt, illegitimate government that for decades has leveraged government power to protect and promote illegal activity, including drug trafficking. That drug trafficking has enriched and entrenched Venezuela's political and military elite, including Minister of the Interior, Justice, and Peace Diosdado Cabello Rondon, the defendant, and former Minister of the Interior and Justice Ramon Rodriguez Chacin, the defendant. That massive-scale drug trafficking has also concentrated power and wealth in the hands of Maduro Moros' family, including his wife, the purported First Lady of Venezuela, Celia Adela Flores de Maduro, the defendant, and Maduro Moros' son, member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, the Prince. I see. This cycle of narcotics-based corruption lines the pockets of Venezuelan officials and their families while also benefiting violent narco-terrorists who operate with impunity on Venezuelan soil and who help produce, protect, and transport tons of cocaine to the United States. At various times since in or about 1999, Venezuelan officials have partnered with narco-terrorists from Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, Ejército de Liberación Nacional, the Sinaloa Cartel, the Zetas, and Tren de Aragua, including TDA's leader Hector Rustenford Guerrero Flores, the defendant. In sum, Maduro Moros and his co-conspirators have, for decades, partnered with some of the most violent and prolific drug traffickers and narco-terrorists in the world and relied on corrupt officials throughout the region to distribute tons of cocaine to the United States. Now, I have to imagine that this was given to the grand jury before the arrest was made, which would explain all of the present tense verbiage. I would start by leveraging the primary vote with Vermeer. You're already in the wrong category. Once you get to the general election, what are you going to do? Tell me what to do in the general. This feels like avoidance. People love to talk about political action outside of the general when they're arguing about not voting for one of the two parties in the general, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. I can walk and chew bubblegum, Vermeer. Okay, I don't care about the defendants. Okay, so if you don't think primary votes are... I didn't say primary... I can walk and chew bubblegum, Vermeer. Don't be dishonest with me. Right, Maddie. Vermeer just wants to avoid that point. Vermeer, you keep looking more dishonest with every post. Tell me what I do in the general. Why won't you answer this question? I don't know how possible independent parties are in the U.S. right now. It's not. Moving the Democratic Party further left seems much... I agree. I think that's honestly more realistic. But really, at this point, I may consider a constitutional convention that breaks down the two-party system more realistic than either of those options. I want to really want to know what I'm supposed to do in the general. Kill me. Kill me. I'm still confused what happened in YouTube chat. Van Pumpkin 1560 came in and said capital W and has never said anything since. I immediately said hi, and I immediately asked what that meant, and got nothing. A purple country isn't... Okay. Oh, Maddie, I got like a quarter of the way through that document. I wasn't able to... I didn't get to have a lunch break, really. But I did read a little bit before starting stream. And to be honest, it terrifies me. It terrifies me. Why do you insist on scaring me like this? I had never really thought about things in that sense. And it makes sense in kind of like a super dark way of like, well, if we're just going to keep vying for more and more and broader power, well, eventually you get to the point where it just kind of reaches the whole globe, doesn't it? What happens then? Vermeer. Vermeer. I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be a disappointed dad with you. But we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to start hounding you. Get in here and explain yourself. All right, Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, like former President Chavez before him, participates in, perpetuates, and protects a culture of corruption in which powerful Venezuelan elites enrich themselves through drug trafficking and the protection of their partner drug traffickers. I love the framing of this whole thing, where it just looks like the federal government going, yes, yes, thank you. They're so bad. They're so bad. Look at all the good we do. I'm like, yes, but you're not explaining your actions. Hey, give me a paper about you. I want a paper about you now. Remember, a lot of those political crises and massive overhauls were pushed hard by hyper-fascist people and ultra-capitalists. Brexit was pushed mostly by Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Yeah. I just realized what my whole attitude toward this project is. It's Cartman. It's Cartman in the I don't remember what the episode's about, but it's the one where he's mimicking a teacher in a B movie trying to reach through to kids from poorer backgrounds. How do I get through to these kids? How do I get through to these kids? People ultimately do not like fascism. They just can't see it in front of their face. It's like you're literally blind and trusting the guy who represents you to go, it's not fascism. Here, walk this way. Walk into this pole. Walk into this pole. It's not fascism. Remember last night when I pointed out Curtis Yarvin reminding that Trump wasn't working fast enough for him? Yeah. Fast isn't really something Trump is known for. Remember when he rode that golf cart with the, I think it was the G7? Everybody was walking around and he rode the golf cart behind them? Like some kind of embarrassment to America on the global stage? Even the autocratic fascists don't like fascism when it's not directly doing what they want. Yeah, amazing how that works. Amazing how autocracy can do something that you like and somehow then not do things that you don't. But you've already handed the authority over. Shucks. Okay, the profits of that illegal activity flow to corrupt rank-and-file civilian, military, and intelligence officials who operate in a patronage system run by those at the top, referred to as the Cartel de los Soles, or Cartel de Suns. A reference to the sun insignia affixed to the uniforms of highly ranking Venezuelan military officials. Venezuela sits in a geographically valuable location for drug traffickers, with the northern access to the Caribbean Sea via several large ports and whistling. Okay, we got a geography lesson in paragraph 17. In that environment, cocaine trafficking flourished. Venezuelan officials and their family members partnered with narcotics traffickers and narco-terrorist groups who dispatched processed cocaine from Venezuela to the United States via transshipment points in the Caribbean. Are we just going to ignore that fentanyl's not in here? Huh? Huh? It's ultimately fascism's downfall, yeah. What, are you saying fascism's ultimately fascism's downfall is that people don't like it? Accurate. When everyone is a sociopathic, greedy douchebag, then they'll ultimately eat each other. Yep. Which is The wild thing is they know the game they're playing. It's the same game for all of human history. I'm going to seize power, and I'm going to fucking ride that roller coaster, baby. I'm gonna do my best to last as long as I can, enjoy my power for as long as I've got it, and who knows how it's gonna go for me, but I'll try. Through this drug trafficking, Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, and corrupt members of his regime enabled corruption fueled by drug trafficking throughout the region. Oh, I already read that. In turn, these politicians used the cocaine-fueled payments to maintain and augment their political power. So, too, were politicians along the Caribbean route corrupted by cocaine traffickers, who would pay them for protection from arrest and to allow favored traffickers to operate with impunity as they traffic cocaine from Venezuela north towards the United States. I've got a question. Huh? $29,000 deaths in 2023 related to cocaine. Oh, somebody that Maddie's a fan of joining. Hi, Sock Now. So 29,000 deaths with a voluntarily ingested drug. And this is the imminent threat to America that justifies an act of war that has not been legitimized by Congress? Me? I'm Austin? Or Sock Now is Austin? I'm Austin. Vermeil. Good Jesus Christ. I am Austin. I don't see it moving to the left when they just demonstrated their moral standards by funding a genocide. Remember, they are owned by the same ruling class. We don't use any leverage other than unions to really challenge their power. Maybe by leveraging the freely given primary vote that can do. So what do I do in the general, Vermeil? Vermeil, what do I do in the general? Is Palestine the only issue on the ticket? Vermeil. Level with me. What do I do in the general? How many posts have you written where you didn't answer this question? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 posts where you have not answered this question. Wish I could see what time that was posted and tell you how many minutes it's been. Awesome, so vote for whoever you want on the primary, but when it comes down to Kamala and Trump, I sorely pick Kamala. I view your placard. Yeah, you're a lefty. Good to know. I am a lefty. I am a democratic socialist. We need different candidates. Yes, but kind of clueless. Surely you're not suggesting that I'm not gonna do, like, what do I do in the general? Somebody tell me what I do in the general. Use my shit. It's fun. Vermeer, you're an extremely dishonest person. I don't know how you can make any kind of moral claims when you're this dishonest. Extremely, extremely dishonest. I didn't say not to care about the genocide. I do care about the genocide. I hope you feel bad about yourself. That's what I hope. You should feel bad about yourself with how dishonest you are. So we're now up to 8 posts where you haven't told me what I should do in the general. Have you had this conversation before with anyone, Vermeer? Has it gone this way? How does it normally go? You've said something that isn't true. You said that I casually said that caring about a genocide doesn't matter that much, and I didn't say that. That's objectively untrue. And yet you continue to insist it. I was gonna say, what's so bad about Kamala, but we're having the conversation about Palestine, then that was bad about Kamala for sure. Fool, you're a fool. Well, maybe you could fucking tell me what to do in the general, Vermeer. Do people often just move off the topic that easily? They go, oh, you said a dishonest thing about the thing I believe. I'm gonna stop trying to hold you to account about the thing that you won't answer. Right, and if they don't have a real shot, then there isn't a third option. Oh, you're a communist yourself? A Hispanic communist. Okay. Well, I haven't really had any... I don't think I've had a one-on-one conversation with a communist. So, by communist, sock now, do you think... Do you use the stateless, moneyless society definition of that term? Stateless, moneyless, classless society. So too were politicians along the Caribbean route, corrupted by cocaine traffickers who would pay them for protection from arrest and to allow favored traffickers to operate with impunity as they traffic cocaine from Venezuela north towards the United States. Thus, at every step, relying on the producers in Colombia, transporters and distributors in Venezuela, and recipients and redistributors on transshipment points north. The traffic... Wow, we're transshipment now. We really have changed. This is not about drugs, this is about oil in Venezuela. Right. What? Yeah. Similarly, Nicolas Maduro Moros, Diosdado Cabello Rondon, Ramon Rodriguez Chaquin, the defendants, and other corrupt members of the regime facilitated the empowerment and growth of violent narco-terrorist groups, fueling their organizations with cocaine profits. Blah, 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 blah. Overt acts. I should have just skipped here in the first place. The defendants, together and with others, engaged in a relentless campaign of cocaine trafficking throughout the time period. Throughout, Nicolas Maduro Moros, the defendant, along with members of his family and other corrupt officials, provided law enforcement cover and logistical support for the transport of cocaine. Between approximately 2006 and 2008, while acting as Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Ooh, there's message number 10. Message number 10, did they answer the question? Have we've gotten to double digits? You literally said in a snarky tone, does Palestine really matter that much? No, I didn't say, does Palestine matter that much? I mean, it's possible I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, that was not what I meant. But I don't think I said that. So Vermeer, if you've got your mind made, oh, good luck. Good luck. 11 messages without answering the question. Can you tell me what I should do in the general, or are you just gonna run away? Let me put it this way, Vermeer, if you're still here. If you're not going to tell people what to do in the general, I don't know what kind of difference you're going to make for Palestine. You need to politically activate people to know what they need to do. So stick to your guns and tell people what they need to do to care about Palestine in the general election. I don't know how this person thinks they look good at all. Even Chevron and ExxonMobil stock prices increased during the capture of Maduro. Well, that is exactly the point. Yeah. Solar is what China's focusing on, so they just need a tiny fraction of oil. It's not a huge own on China's energy supply. Between approximately 2006 and 2008, while acting as Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maduro Moros sold Venezuelan diplomatic passports to individuals that Maduro Moros knew were drug traffickers in order to assist drug traffickers seeking to move drug proceeds from Mexico to Venezuela under diplomatic cover. When the drug traffickers needed to move drug proceeds from Mexico back to Venezuela, Maduro Moros facilitated the movement of private planes under diplomatic cover to ensure the flights received no scrutiny from law enforcement or the military. Maddie, you constantly surprise me with, like, I don't understand how you can continue to be as educated on everything as you are. How do you have time? Like, I don't feel like I have time to educate myself on everything that's going on. While the traffickers met with Venezuelan ambassador to Mexico under the auspices of a diplomatic mission. I want to get through this freaking document. Work together to traffic cocaine. Dispatched more than 5.5 tons of cocaine from Venezuela to Mexico on a DC-9 jet. Finance cocaine laboratories. Cocaine produced in those laboratories was then transported under the protection of the FARC. Venezuelan officials dispatched approximately 1.3 tons of cocaine on a commercial flight. The captain in the Venezuelan National Guard on Margarita Island, Venezuela, coordinated hotels, transportation, women, and food for visits by Venezuelan officials. Between, in, or about October 2015 and in or about November 2015, Efren Campo Flores agreed during recorded meetings with DEA confidential sources to dispatch multi-hundred kilogram cocaine shipments. How much do you want to bet that once we get to 2021, they're going to make a mention about the Biden administration specifically? They already have huge amounts of solar farms in China, but I think they will be more reliant on their nuclear power plants first than the world oil reserves. Cool. Energy conversation going on in chat. Statutory allegations. Okay. Narcoterrorism conspiracy. Okay, so it is an inchoate charge. Like, it is an inchoate crime that they're being charged with. Cocaine importation conspiracy, another inchoate crime. Possession of machine guns and destructive devices. From at least in or about 1999. Okay, this is the part that I was really curious about. Vox Nix. Hey, yo, what's going on, Vox Nix? From at least in or about 1999 up to and including in or about 2025 in an offense begun and committed out of the jurisdiction of any particular state or district of the United States, and for which at least one of two or more joint offenders has been and will be first brought to and arrested in the SDNY. The defendants, during and in relation to a drug trafficking crime for which they may be prosecuted in a court of the United States, to wit, the controlled substance offenses charged in counts 1 and 2 of this superseding indictment. The controlled substance offense charged in count 2 of the superseding indictment, knowingly used and carried. That doesn't make sense, guys. And furtherance of such crimes, knowingly possessed firearms and aided and abetted the use, carrying, and possession of firearms, to wit, machine guns that were capable of automatically shooting more than one shot. Okay, I see what they're alleging here, I think. I think what they're alleging... Possession of machine guns. Well... Okay, count 4 makes more sense to me. So we're saying... While conspiring to commit acts of narcoterrorism, Maduro had a gun in his possession. I don't think having firearms in the commission of an inchoate crime makes any sense. I don't think that makes any sense. President of a country isn't able to carry a gun in his own country. Well, that's not really the question that interests me. I mean, I think the whole thing is a farce. I'd be more surprised if it made sense at this point. Hey, Hefe, welcome in, welcome in. I got multiple people that are new here all at once, so I'm just going to say, hey guys, I'm Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too, because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything, and that's what we try to do here. I'm constantly getting stuff from my chat to look at, from a legal perspective, that I can learn about, that I can discuss. Did a really nice breakdown of the 5-minute Dinesh D'Souza PragerU fascism is a leftist concept video. That was one that I hadn't reviewed before, so it was nice to review live, and did a really good breakdown of that. And so I'm learning too, and I hope to teach people when they come in here. That's what we're about, so welcome in. Can he be charged with possession of a firearm in the commission of a crime outside the United States, assuming the narcoterrorism... See, Voxnix, this is the part that is really interesting to me, that I'm trying to wrap my head around. And I say the part that's really interesting to me. This is the part that's really interesting to me about the charges. The part that really is concerning to me is the violation of the Constitution on just a blatant level. But, so, count 1 is narcoterrorism conspiracy. Count 2 is cocaine importation conspiracy. So these are conspiracy crimes. Conspiracy is what's known as an inchoate crime, which is a non-completion crime. The 3 types of inchoate crimes, at least the 3 general kinds, are attempt, solicitation, and conspiracy. And generally, when you're found guilty of an inchoate crime, you receive the same level of culpability as if you had been the one to commit the crime yourself, or to have completed the crime. So, let's skip down to count 4. Count 4 is conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. This one makes sense to me in that if you are conspiring to arm people who are in the process of distributing cocaine, then yeah, you have committed conspiracy to commit an additional illegal act. But count 3 is just the possession of firearms while committing these conspiracy crimes. And I'm sitting here going, how does being armed while committing a conspiracy make any difference? How does that apply under the law? Also true, only time will tell, I guess. Don't make any gun jokes. Nightbot got on my ass earlier. If I knew that, I'd be working for the U.S. Department of Energy or Brookings or something like that. Fair enough. Okay. So I'm going to go ask ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT. I don't like ChatGPT. I'm going to go ask Claude for some sources here in just a second. Okay. What was it? Cocaine importation conspiracy. Nope, not that. No, not that either. There we go. TGA non-as bowl. Hi. Welcome in. Is the commission of the crime an enhancement or a separate charge under federal law? I think it can be different depending on what law we're referring to. Just say Ganon. Pleasure to meet Ganon in the flesh, in the code. Last time I met Ganon, he died. Are you okay? Where's Venezuela? Okay. Okay, Maduro's charges are narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation, conspiracy, possession of a machine gun, and I think detonation devices. What was it? Destructive devices. And conspiracy to possess? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Hello. Oh yeah, this is how I exist before Nintendo pulls me back into their servers to use me for another Zelda game. What do you mean when you say that the biggest issue is that these acts of war did not follow the Constitution? Would you have supported them if they did? No. When I say that it's the biggest issue, it doesn't mean it's the only issue. Because Congress could have approved this action, and I would still be, what the fuck are we doing? I'd be like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? What's happening? But the violation of the Constitution by the executive power to use executive power is a threat to everyone. Donald Trump has threatened us today, or when he invaded Venezuela. Left-wing policy here, still intact. Like there is nothing harming China. Like even their recent response should show, yeah, they are not really shocked as they theatrically responded like they dictated. Oh, we are really shocked. Because purely possession of a machine gun or destructive device wouldn't make sense, given he wasn't in possession within the boundaries of the United States. Why would people want to support an oil war? Yeah. Simp for the devil. Hi. I think that's your first post today. I didn't see one earlier. If he thinks about Saudi Arabia, oh my god. I taught my MAGA coworker about Jamal Khashoggi earlier today. It was like A, disappointing that she didn't know about that, and B, kind of sad to watch her face as I explained what happened. Biggest issue with the actions in Venezuela is that it's the US exercising their hegemony. It sends a message that any alternative system that opposes our unipolar society led by the US will be met with force. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I have to treat my own existential threat as the most important to me and my loved ones. So this is an existential threat to me. So I think the biggest concern is the violation of the Constitution. It makes sense to me that the concern of the rest of the world is what you said. But that's like it's insane and backwards. How can he protect democracy when he's being an authoritarian? Okay, under 18 USC 924, you can be charged with possessing a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. And drug trafficking crime includes conspiracies. Conspiracy to distribute is a felony under the Controlled Substances Act, so it counts as a predicate offense. So technically, yes, you can charge 924C possession based on a conspiracy predicate. But here's what's weird. Maduro is a head of state. Of course, he has access to machine guns and destructive devices. He commands a military. The possession itself isn't unusual. It's the nexus of drug trafficking that they'd have to prove. The nexus requirement of 924C normally requires showing the weapon was possessed in furtherance of the drug crime, strategically placed, accessible, connected to the trafficking operation. How do you prove Venezuela's military hardware was possessed in furtherance of cocaine importation conspiracies as opposed to, being the military hardware of a nation state? Yeah. Extraterritoriality. They're charging a foreign national possessing weapons in a foreign country in connection with a conspiracy targeting the U.S. That's an aggressive jurisdictional claim. Yep. Wow, the machine gun charges carry a 30-year mandatory minimum. Yo, that's okay. As an American, I don't really care if an action violates set rules. The way I see it, actions should be judged by what their results are, not if it follows any. Dude, Gannon, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. You should not be okay with a beneficent authoritarian act. Even an authoritarian act that produces only good results, quote unquote, is still an authoritarian act. You can't let those slide. That's not okay. For Raising Star, that makes total sense to me, and I won't fault anybody outside the U.S. for that being their primary concern. But then again, like maybe there's an argument to be made even for people outside the United States that the violation of the Constitution should be their primary concern also, because once the world superpower no longer has the force of law to constrain its executive, that's That's rough. I mean, if we turn that into strict utilitarianism, then I would go ahead and say that one that produces positive results would still have net negative results every time. Hey, Sock. Now, earlier I asked if when you say communism. Oh, Gannon. Well, hold on. Yeah, I have a held message to review. I think we need an authoritarian leader selected through a meritocratic process. Oh boy. I'm actually writing a pretty long text explaining my philosophical and political views. I obviously understand that the Constitution is an important document, but the idea of set rules constrains positive actions. Yeah, but it also constrains negative actions. No meritocratic process can restrain the future of an authoritarian. What? Verizian Star, I don't agree. Like, there are two different USs. There is the US that is constrained by the law of the land, and that can still do harm. But there is also just the unilateral action of the executive. That's a different US, I would argue. I think both of those act together, and the second should usually shut the fuck up and sit down. But if they don't shut the fuck up and sit down, then they're they're a much bigger problem than the other one. When I mean communism, I mean nationalization of industries, making more industries publicly available, talking about more of a cooperative event as well, where people are free to build work cooperatives. So you're not talking about the stateless society. Okay. That sounds like the kind of socialism I'd be familiar with. How would you differentiate that from socialism? I think instead of having set rules, you have to make the psychological conditions of power not conducive for harmful people and actions. That'll never happen. That's not possible. I think the person in charge should be fully anonymous. Anonymous? Whoa, okay, wait, hold on. What's happening? Pause. I think the person in charge should be fully anonymous and have no rights or status above that of a normal person, which removes the corrupting power of fame and status, which I think is far more harmful than power. You can still be self-interested and like give yourself benefits even if you're anonymous. You can still use the system corruptly for your own self-benefit. I'd argue that if you're looking at it with that type of a utilitarian view, that even if the outcome of a single violation of the Constitution immediately results in a good outcome, that long term it becomes a bad outcome. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. When I'm in communism, I mean nationalization of industries, making more industries publicly available, talking about more of a cooperative as well, where people are free to build work cooperatives. I disagree, Verizian Star. I still disagree. Because if this is allowed to stand, then the president can just start doing actions whenever they want. Congress always has to take a slow, agonizing amount of time and debate. If it weren't for the amount of effort, time, and debate and public image that were at stake with Congress, then maybe the United States would have been worse. It may have done more worse, more frequent things. An unleashed executive is worse for the world by a long shot. Yeah, Verizian Star. That's like people are going to hear me say this all the time. This is one of the first lessons we taught when I was teaching the LSAT. Um, when you're teaching students to identify flaws in an argument, I always start with what's a good way to frame this? Police officers are more often allocated to neighborhoods with higher crime. Neighborhoods with more police officers still tend to have more violent crime than surrounding neighborhoods. Therefore, police patrolling is ineffective at reducing violent crime. There's a flaw in that argument. That flaw being that it could definitely be effective because it could be worse. We don't know from that data, but it's possible that it would be worse, even worse, without police patrolling. Just on those facts alone. Not making any arguments about policing. Just a logic argument. So yeah, you can sit there and say, well, it doesn't look like law has helped very much. Are you sure? This completely rips out the entire concept of checks and balances. Yeah, for sure. Violating a rule isn't inherently bad. Yes, violating a rule that you are required to uphold to be given power over other people is always inherently bad. Always inherently. You could even say, like, I could give you a scenario where it's like, this presidential leader violated the Constitution to send himself into the battlefield to save American troops. The troops were rescued, this president died, and we don't have to deal with that person anymore at all, and only good things came out of it. That was still an awful, awful thing to do because now somebody else who wants to flaunt the rules can use it as an example of the type of thing they could do, and they could use it as justification for an incident where they wouldn't have to kill themselves, and but still violate the rules. It's always bad when we're talking about an oath restrained action for the use of other people's power. Yeah, it's always bad. I'd argue that everything should be looked at through a consequentialist and utilitarian lens. It's still a utilitarian lens, dude. You're just not thinking far enough in the future. You're constraining things to a single period of time. It's been the project of the billionaires to use the US as a means to control the wealth of the world. We have seen that what a world dominator does through 2 world wars. Why do we need to go through it a third time when the same result comes up with leader needs accountability? And with the self-interest, of those psychological conditions wouldn't be appealing to them. The psychological conditions. I don't know what that means. What are the psychological conditions? The meritocratic system? I don't get it. Okay. Does anybody have a good link to the Trump Air Force One interview? I want to review that. And I think I'll be done tonight after that. Like what I said earlier about an anonymous leader with power but not status. Oh, right. Yeah, always bad. BT dubs. Look at me saying I'm going to call it at 12:45. He does this trick for interviews he doesn't want to give. Maddie, don't out me. Don't tell them my secrets that I don't want to talk to them live. I'll have a helicopter plane come out in the background. It's a shame the number of people that can't see what an embarrassment of a human being he is. I think there needs to be higher standards for anyone that is in higher leadership. There has to be higher standards. The Supreme Court, lowering the standards of the president is the very problem where we are in this mess. There has to be higher standards. My MAGA coworker asked me in our conversation about Venezuela today. She was like, "So, let's say it was unconstitutional. If it was unconstitutional, something bad gonna happen to him for it?" And I was like, "Well, yes. The bad thing that's gonna happen to him is that it will be on the books that he did an unconstitutional and morally corrupt thing. Beyond that, no. It's possible that he could be impeached and removed, but if we can't do that, then outside of a 25th Amendment option or a constitutional amendment removing him from office, then we have nothing." And the Supreme Court already made it clear that he cannot be prosecuted for this thing that he did. He can't be prosecuted for all the murders that he conspired to commit. Can I ask if she's another lawyer? Who are we talking about? Oh, no. Oh, my coworker. Oh, no, she's not a lawyer. I might need to clarify that when I talk about her, because other people will think, like, if they're my coworker, they must be a lawyer, and that must mean that their opinion is legitimized. Can we go back to the president being the first pick on the ticket and the vice president being the second pick so we can have differing ideas in the top executive seats? I mean, I guess those differing ideas are very important because it was disagreement on one particular idea that saved us in the 2020 election. Agreed. Trump is an example of why a democracy always leads to someone charismatic with bad intentions. That was a horrible outcome. And there's a whoa. There's a reason why that was like the first thing changed. My coworker or your family member is always a classic trope. But everything is jumping around so much. Everyone experiences, yeah. My MAGA coworker I like to talk about because like she's my sounding board for when I have thoughts about like this is what I would say to a MAGA person about this concept. Okay, I can bounce it off her. We have a good rapport, so I can sound these ideas off of her and be like, what do you think about this? Please explain yourself. Jefferson and Adams hating each other so much they couldn't work together. The Supreme Court is lowering the standards of presidency, and that is a threat not only to the United States national security, but is a threat to international security, and the Supreme Court cannot just allow this to keep going on. They are doing that, and it should be at a point where Supreme Court leaders need to be removed somehow because they are the accountability keepers. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about, Sock. Now I haven't been able to determine like what in the post is concerning. Usually those MAGA people are generally misled, not a bad person. Yeah. I've made it clear to her on multiple issues that she's been misled about stuff. When I released my first video, the first 5 minutes of the video go into the fake electors plot, and she had no idea that that existed. And it was watching my video that made her go check it out herself, and she was like, "What the fuck?" Still not enough to budge her, which is insane to me. How can you support someone who is willing to overturn democracy? I don't tell it to her like that. That's not how I approach that. I have said that to a couple people in my debates where I'm just like, hey, I need you to understand. Well, but usually I prove the point first. I prove the point. Like, yeah, everything that you've said about DEI has been false this entire time. And now that we've established that, let me pause and say, this is an example of how words are being used against you by the people that you're voting for. Right. They've got to be at least some level of asshole, right? But it's like, it's God, it's like a, the only thing I can think of immediately is like a sticker burrs. I don't know if anybody knows what those are. I don't know how much of a Texan experience that is. Sticker burrs or what, barnacles? Barnacles of assholedom. It's like they're not even. It's not even their character of being an asshole that we're talking about. Super apathetic is definitely part of the problem for sure. But the other part of it is they've been trained to gamify political discussion. The phrase that came up I think last night was like they come up with ways, like they congratulate themselves for coming up with ways to shrug at a point until the next conversation, and each time that they can just shrug until the next conversation is a win. So they just try to come up with these like thought, like off ramps, um, to just shrug it away. Yep. And that's, they consider that a victory. They think they are winning a game, and it's not a fucking game. I don't even think that they are misled or apathetic. I've definitely had enough discussions with people to know that they are misled. At least those are the ones that I really care about. I just think they want some sort of revenge, and they're getting that type of policy of a world bully because they think that the world is after them, and a person in Italy sipping on their sparkling water is not harming them in Alabama, where they're drinking Heineken. Um, a point that I find myself that I like that I have to keep making is what's going on? Did my daughter just throw up? Give me just a second, y'all. Well, guys, it looks like I'm gonna have to call it here. I have to go be a dad. Had a kid that woke up in the middle of the night and is throwing up. So I appreciate all of you. Uh, appreciate all the new folks here. I hope to see you back. Um, I'll do a shortened version of my sign off. I'm Know Nothing attorney. I know nothing, so you can too, because that's important. Embracing that we know nothing, and I'm proud of you. If you need to know why, I'll tell you next time. All right. Good night, y'all. I'll be back here tomorrow. Peace.